The Federal Department of Education furloughed 90% of its staff. And what happened? Nothing. Schools stayed open. Students went to class. Teachers got paid. The shutdown proved our schools don't depend on Washington bureaucracy to function. If 90% of an agency supposedly governing education can disappear for weeks without disrupting education, do we really need it at all?
Education Secretary Linda McMahon bringing some receipts why the U.S. Department of Education should be shut down for good. And this week, the White House did begin the steps to dismantle the agency, shifting programs, projects, and power to 4 other federal departments. Here to discuss this morning is Senior Director of Communications for Defending Education, Erika Sanzi. Good Thursday morning to you.
Good morning.
We know there needed to be an overhaul somewhere, Erika, considering recent assessments show 40% of 4th graders are reading below their basic grade level, 33% of 8th graders, which is the largest, by the way, in the exam's 3-decade history. How much of this, though, is attributed to this focus that the U.S. Department of Education used to have on woke ideology in schools versus basic reading and writing?
I mean, that's a really good question. But again, we've been on a downward trajectory since the 70s, basically, right? And we've pumped in, many trillions of dollars only to see outcomes decline. So I think that this sort of like the woke ideology / taking our eyes off the ball of the basics has exacerbated this, no question. And in addition to because in addition to not prioritizing reading and math and the fundamentals, that ideology also forces schools to lower expectations for students. So you have a lowering of expectations, then you have a shifting focus from the fundamentals, and it's kind of a perfect storm for just lousy outcomes. But I do think that the department and the issue with the department obviously predates this sort of quote unquote wokeness, because we haven't seen really any evidence since its inception during the Carter administration that it does anything to bring about better outcomes for students or teachers or families.
Yeah, and what do you think about what Linda McMahon said, during the entire shutdown, schools operated just fine?
I think that's a very compelling point. If you can furlough 90% of your workforce in a department and not see any changes on the ground. I mean, literally buses, sporting events, schools running, meals. It wasn't like the airports. It wasn't like SNAP. I mean, it literally was like you would have had no idea that there was a shutdown going on, right, other than like teachers in the teachers' lounge talking about it as it related to, their husband because he's a air traffic controller or something.
Right.
So I do think that that's an extremely compelling point, that it just is not, education does not fit neatly at all into having its own agency that way. And in fact, what it does is it involves categories that fit more neatly into other federal agencies. And so the thing about this change that's important is it's not that it's taking education necessarily out of the federal government.
That's right.
It's saying the Department of Labor is going to handle this part. The Department of the Interior is going to handle this part. HHS is going to take this on, and the State Department is going to take this on. And the other important thing for people to understand is this is not a reduction in funding. This is a shifting where the money is going to be coming out of, but the amounts don't change. So even though Title I is going to be moving over to a different department, the dollars are the dollars. The dollars are the same. So unless somebody's watching the news and listening to this, they're not going to notice a difference on the ground.
On the flip side, when you look at some of the local jurisdictions and local school districts, you have a place like Chicago, which has been involved in multiple scandals recently. We just did a story yesterday on an Inspector General report that found that CPS employees spent millions in COVID relief funds on luxurious travel, limo rides, spa visits, all on the taxpayers' dime. Chicago public schools, though, some of the worst performing in the country, less than 1/3 of students reading at grade level. As a result, CPS, did freeze employee travel and launched an investigation, but basically said, oh, well, this kind of stuff happens. I mean, there is no criminal charges or anything as a result of this. What do you make of this?
I mean, the Chicago public schools are broken. And in addition, I mean, they have 55 schools there where not a single child is proficient in reading or math. 55 schools. Their student outcomes are terrible. The city is run by an absolute lunatic. And so I don't want to say it's hopeless, but it is a broken system. So none of this about this story of, this travel and this misuse of funds, it doesn't surprise me at all. Because again, we just have so little accountability in these systems. And it's very unfortunate. But again, the Chicago public school system, as it currently runs, does not put students first. The people with the most power in that system do not put student learning first. And so this is what you end up with.
And you have to wonder, too, if we've lost an entire generation, of future Americans, which is frightening. Senior Director of Communications for Defending Education, Erika Sanzi, great to see you on this Friday Eve. Have a good weekend.
You too, Jan. Thanks.